Well, hello and welcome to the Car Care Now channel live stream. How you guys doing today? I hope everybody's doing well. Let us start with the live stream. Let's go through your questions and then we'll have a little talk at the end as usual. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. If you are a returning subscriber, well, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. And without further ado, let's get right into the live stream, guys. So, starting with the first question, loaded fan. I have a 2008 Scion XB automatic transmission burning oil. Any advice? Should I fix it or get rid of it? So, it depends on the rest of the car. Now, this is a common problem. This car has the 2AZ FE, which is known for oil burning problems. But if the rest of the car is in good shape, I would consider potentially fixing it. Cars are hard to find these days, and you're going to go buy, especially if you're going to buy another used car, it might be worth fixing it if the rest of the car is in good shape. Doesn't have a lot of miles, it's the body is in good shape, doesn't have a lot of rust and whatnot. So another question from John. 2016 Highlander GPS will periodically show wrong location. Sometimes it fixes itself and other times not. Tried recalibrating several times. Perhaps I need a new GPS antenna. So there are a few things, and this one will need a little bit more diagnosis in person, but I will tell you this. The GPS in Toyotas, it uses the vehicle speed to determine when your car is moving. It doesn't exactly entirely depend on the GPS itself. So the one thing I would look into is, do you have other issues? Do you have other trouble codes? Do you have especially a code P0500? If the GPS is not receiving the signal of the speed signal of the car. Otherwise, it could be a GPS antenna, and you can actually verify this. There's a diagnosis mode you can go into. Don't hold me on this, it varies between models, but if you hold the audio button and turn on your lights 4 times really quickly, that'll actually put you in diagnosis mode. You can go and see the signal strength of the GPS. So when it does that, you can see if you're losing GPS signal. If you are, it could be an antenna issue. It could also be the area that you're driving. If you're covered, you could be losing reception like that. Another question, Michelle Eden, do you have any favorite cleaning products for your own cars? I actually use Groit's Garage or something like that. They're really good. I've been using them for years. There's a lot of good products out there, but these, I really like them because the cleaning products smell good and they work really, really good. Another question from Dave. I have 3 Toyotas, 1 hybrid and 2 internal combustion engine. What is the best safe way to wash and clean the engine compartment? Folks, I promised you, and we're coming up to that time, I want to make a video. Actually, I really having a hard time keeping my Camry engine bay intentionally dirty, not cleaning it regularly to kind of make the content. It's not really that dirty, but I'll make that video. This is something we're going to talk about at the end of the live stream. I'm swamped with things, with the shop and everything going on, and working at a dealership and jumping here, going there, and it's been a bit much. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I do want to make that video. I hope in the next few weeks I can get a good day where it's sunny outside and just do it outside. Another question from Toyota 2ARFE 2007 Honda HRV. Brakes and rotors replaced 2 years ago on my mom's car. Brake pedal is pulsating, not shaking in the steering wheel. No shaking in the steering wheel. Mechanic said rear pads and rotors. It could be, not that the rear, he says that rear pads are bad. Not bad, but it could be that the rear brakes are causing the pulsation. If you feel the pulsation in the body of the car, especially the seat, it is, rear brakes. And if you've just replaced the fronts, just heat them up a little bit and press the brake. Make sure you feel the steering wheel, because the fronts do majority of the braking. The rears really just help. But if they are warped, you're going to feel it in the seat more than anywhere else in the car. So, loaded fan, another question. When will the unveiling of Mrs. Karenet's 4Runner be? Well, Mrs. Karen does not drive a 4Runner. She would love to, maybe a TRD Pro one in white. But the car that she has, she loves it so much, even though if you guys knew what it is, you wouldn't love it as well. But it was kind of a car we bought on a rush, and it was a really good price, and we figured we'd keep it a year or two. It's been a few years, and it's still here. When the shop opens, actually, I have to pull the transmission out of that car to fix the leak, so you'll know what it is then. Michelle F. bought a 2016 Camry SE, 58,000 miles, runs well, will take it to a mechanic for a new transmission fluid, drain and fill or flush. Have read that flushes can cause trouble, drop pan, replace filter. So at this miles, I would just replace the fluid, drain and fill. You're welcome to do a flush, but just make sure it is using original fluid and you are checking the transmission fluid after the flush. I see this mistake all the time, and that's how the transmissions start having a low fluid level afterwards. So, another question: where can you reveal your new shop location? Will you be working on subscriber cars? I am actually potentially, me and Mrs. Carcare and I are figuring this out. We might go right after the live stream to the shop. We got to measure a few things and check a few things. We might take the camera with us and film. I do want to give you guys an update. There's a lot that happened in the shop and a lot more happening. So I'll give you an update video and I'll talk a little bit about it towards the end of the video. Will you be working on subscriber cars? Absolutely. I will be working on it's going to be a shop open to the public. So Stanley Liu, 2007 Tundra starts when engine is cold, but extended crank if left for a few hours and engine is warm. Fuel pressure test shows fuel pump is healthy. Well, I'm trying to remember if '07 had flex fuel. Do you have flex fuel? That's the first question I'm going to ask you. Um, Something about vapor lock, and if it is flex fuel, there's a whole TSP about that one. I'm noticing you're from Canada. I'm not sure if you had flex fuel in 2007, but if you do, it could be the way you're putting E85. This is a very common problem with Tundras. Uh, you're saying when the engine is cold, I'm trying to understand your question. If your engine is cold, if you have the problem when it's cold and when you've just shut it off and restarted, it's fine. Then it could be the flex fuel issue. I would need to know that piece of information. Uh, Jeffrey, my wife broke off the Toyota emblem on a 2018 Camry. Now the radar sensor is saying pre-collision sensor unavailable, clean sensor. The dealer says Toyota does not make the emblem. They do make the emblem. I don't know why they would say that. Some models, I cannot tell you right off the top of my head if you can buy that emblem separate from the grill. Some of them you have to get the whole grill. Some of them you can just get the emblem. It's a little expensive, and the reason it's saying that is because that emblem, the sensor sits behind it and it needs to see through it. When the emblem is broken, it's like shattered, and the vision of the sensor is impaired. So that's you're going to need to replace that, but it should be available. I don't know why they would say it's not. Maybe it's on back order. Maybe it's, we just talked about this in a video today of supply chain. Actually, you have another part of this, and we have to buy the whole front grille. Yes, you do have to buy the whole grill. Unfortunately, this is something a Toyota's decision. Some cars you can buy just the emblem. Some cars you have to buy the whole grill. So that's how that is. Hermes, I have a 2017 Lexus ES300H, but there is an issue, which is whenever the engine kicks in or starts, it makes a knocking sound, which makes the car even shake a little. That is a start misfire, something that's somewhat common with hybrids. You have a start misfire. You want to look at your EGR is the number one thing. If the EGR is clogged, the valve is sticking, it could cause that initial misfire when you start. It is not a major thing. Look at your EGR. I don't know how many miles you have, but do have this EGR inspected. Make sure it's not carboned up or something. That's the first thing I would look at. Brian, my wife and I moved from Houston to Denver. We have a 2008 two-wheel drive RAV4. Question about LSD button in snow and any maintenance that is required for that system. So that LSD button is actually not something significant, believe it or not. This is going to use the traction control to kind of mimic a limited slip differential. Doesn't do much. And a two-wheel drive RAV4 will be fine in the snow. However, you're in Denver, you're going up and down. It's not a flat area. That's what I hear. I've never been to Denver, but I would try it in your current area. If you need, maybe install winter tires. That'll be the next thing before you get rid of the car. And as far as maintenance for that, there's nothing special. It just uses the ABS actually to mimic a limited slip differential. So another question from Toyota 2ARFE. My 2014 Camry is making a rattling noise in the front tires. Once I get over 50 miles an hour and I drive under 50, everything's okay. Do I need an alignment or no? I don't think it's an alignment. The one thing is, you're very specific about that rattling in the front tires. Do you have a broken TPMS sensor? That would actually do it. And it would be the opposite. You would hear the lower speeds, not uh, actually, you are saying the noise is under 50. Yes. Check the TPMS sensors. If you just replaced the tire, they could have broken the sensor. We've seen this a lot, actually. They could have broken the sensor, and the sensor is just rattling around the tire. That actually, I've seen that. And the sensor will still work, but you're going to unfortunately have to replace it. Hello, Joe. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. So another question, is there a way to make a fuel pump maintenance cleaning? I have a Toyota RAV4 V6 2010 2GRFE with almost 100,000 miles, no problems at all. What service points do you recommend to check? So on the fuel pump and the fuel filter, folks, newer models, and when I say newer models, probably '05 and up, something like that, they do not have a fuel pump that is serviceable. There is one in the fuel tank, but I don't really recommend you replace it. All the ones that I've removed, even in older cars, they're clean. There's no issues, and that's why Toyota decided um, not to put in physical filter to service. Actually, sometimes filters cause the clogs to begin with, and there hasn't really been historic data to say, oh, they removed the filters, now we have all kinds of problems. That's actually not the case. So I just want to let you know on that. Don't worry about the fuel pump filter. Uh, there's no really maintenance for that I would recommend. Jigsaw, hello, how you doing, sir? Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Ronald, I have a question regarding the brand of oxygen sensors that Toyota sells. Is the OEM brand a Denso, NTK, or their oxygen sensors 2009 Toyota RAV4? I think the part that they sold me was NTK. So it has been both, but majority of them are Denso. I don't remember the last time I've seen an NTK, at least in the newer stuff, but Denso seems to be the number one brand. And as long as you're buying a genuine Denso, you should be okay. I am thinking about getting a 2022 RAV4 Prime XSE. Do you know if the side mirrors auto dim? Right off the top of my head, I think they do, but this is something I would have to check. If you are in the US, they will be different than Canada. The normal RAV4 does not have a dimming, you just have a heated mirror. I would have to check the spec sheet to verify. I don't want to just give you an answer that is incorrect. So Mark Medford, 2016 Camry XLE V6, BSM error. BSM is blind spot monitor. Error when turned on, light does not illuminate on the driver's side mirror. I have made sure the bumpers are clean, free of dirt. How would a DIYer troubleshoot this error? Well, the first thing you want to find out is uh, what kind of code you have. Usually, if the mirror wiring has an issue, that would do it. If the sensor, on the blind spot monitor, the sensor itself that is behind the bumper is actually the computer that controls that side. So the mirror, and it just has a fuse and whatnot. But if the mirror has an issue, or it cannot get power to the bulb, it's actually going to stop that side, stop the whole system, and it can't function. So you want to check mirror first. Do the other functions of the mirror work? Is the mirror damaged in any way, shape, or form? And then check the wiring, and then check the sensor itself. But to save yourself kind of going back and forth, start with checking the codes. You're going to need somewhat of a capable scan tool to read the codes. That's what I would start for. See what it's saying, what it's seeing wrong, so then you can kind of isolate your diagnosis to that area to see what's going on. So, Greg, been saving for a newer used Highlander. This 2019, the latest year you would recommend for rock solid mechanical reliability. So, the 2019 has been good. The 8-speed can be annoying. That's the one thing I will tell you about them. I haven't seen a lot of issues. We still have 2017 and early 18s show up for transmissions with issues. Actually, there's an extended policy on that, but 2019, not so much. Even we've seen some high mile models already, examples of that. But it is good. But if you want to go with solid, really good transmission and engine, go with a 16, believe it or not. That still has the old school 2GR, still has a 6-speed transmission. They're very good. Not the most technologically advanced, but it is definitely better than 17, 18, 19. Is we get back to being good. That's really your call on that one. Toyota 2ARFE, the steering wheel also shakes a little at 50 plus miles an hour. The faster you go, the worse it gets. I put on brakes and rotors and tires in November, only did balance. So this one is going to need a little bit of diagnosis. Do you have a shifted belt? Do you have a tire that's simply out of balance? That could be it. There's a lot of things that would really cause that vibration. But I would start with balancing the tires, maybe check the sensors, see if anyone is broken, because that sensor just throwing itself around will actually throw it out of balance, by the way. Pro Jack or PO Jack, I'm sorry. Do you gap OEM spark plugs or are they trustworthy out of the box? Also, do you use a torque wrench or guesstimate on brakes, plugs, etc.? So on the gap, I do not gap them because they are pre-gapped from the factory, the original ones, because you cannot actually gap these because they damage the tip. And on torque, I do torque spark plugs because you do not want to under torque or over torque that spark plug, because the next mechanic that takes it out will thank you or really dislike you. Because they get seized if you leave them loose or very tight, they could seize up and now you created a problem. But on stuff like brakes, this kind of has muscle memory. It doesn't, there's no critical, anything internal to the engine, including spark plugs, I would torque to spec. Everything external, you can get away with it if you have the experience, you have kind of that muscle memory. Another question is Friends 2012 Camry shuttering, accelerations, 60 kilometers an hour, plus Toyota mechanic says not transmission. What could it be? Now, when you're accelerating, are you holding a steady speed and all of a sudden the car starts shaking? If you accelerate a little harder, it goes away. If that's the case, you have a torque converter issue. This is very common with this year. Um, if this is a Toyota mechanic that knows about Toyotas, he should have known about this one. This is very common and known. But if it's not doing that, it's just you. As soon as you get over 60, it starts vibrating. It could be wheels, could wheels bent, tires bad, or just needs a balance, things like that. But if it, the distinctive thing about the torque converter is this is 2012 to 14 Camrys, it starts shuddering. As soon as you accelerate harder, it completely goes away. It becomes completely normal. That is a torque converter shudder in that case. Let us see. Lala G, how you doing, sir? Eid Mubarak to you as well. Gordon Freeman, any thoughts on the second generation Pontiac Vibe? So the folks who are not familiar, Pontiac Vibe is basically a Toyota Matrix. They are really good. It's just a rebadged Toyota Matrix 100%. As long as you avoid the 2.4 liter, the 2AZFE, which burns oil, you should be good. These are really good cars. Rick H. I have a 1999 ES300 steering rack bushings was serviced. The loose steering is gone. Has 160,000 miles, and I'm the third owner. Seems to burn a little oil. Should I spend the money on a timing belt? Well, it depends. First, on the oil burning, try to replace a PCV valve on these and absolutely sure you use an original one. I've actually been burned by this before, so do use an original one. Replace the grommet that goes underneath it. If it's that style, there's two styles. I would replace the timing belt, but you do want to shop around. Get the async kit. Don't go all original because this is too much. And find a mechanic that's going to do it for a reasonable cost. You don't want to spend dealership rate. That's way too much. If the rest of the car is in good shape, doesn't have a lot of rust, these are really good cars. The transmission sometimes on these, especially the early years in 98 and 99, can be an issue. If your transmission doesn't have issues, then it might be worth it. If this car is generally in good shape, yes, why not? Let's splurge on the big maintenance here. Charles, I just inherited a 2018 Highlander and can't find the code for the radio that will unlock if I change the battery. The 2018 Highlander should not have a code for the radio. Actually, it's been a long time until Toyota's had a code for the radio. That is Honda Land, not Toyota Land. So unless you're not in the US or this is something that has an aftermarket unit, I don't think they have a radio, that code per se. We haven't used codes in a long time. Superman, I just wanted to let you know you're cool. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. You're the best. I'm 17 and I know how to maintain my mom's Venza V6. I am really proud of you, man. I'm going to replace the engine mounts next. See, you start very early in age, and you're that responsible taking care of your mom's car. Good job, man. I wish you the best. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. So, another question: purchased a 2012 Camry XLE six-cylinder with only 20,000 miles. This had to have sat a while. Do I need to worry about engine seals? Did fluid changes? I wouldn't worry about engine seals because it depends where this car sat. If it sat outside in super cold weather, super hot weather, perhaps, but you don't know that. If you know that for sure, then it could have been sat in the garage. If there's heated, air conditioning, and it's babied, uh, then it wouldn't be an issue. But again, this is not a 15, 20-year-old car. This is hardly 10 years. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You already did the fluid changes. That's the first thing I would tell you to do. Do check your tires. That's another thing. If they're original, yeah, do replace them. Please don't drive on 10-year-old tires. That's not a good idea. Another question. I have a 2021 Pro Tacoma manual transmission with a Magnuson supercharger. And what do you think of me adding an oil catch can? So on these, it is a good idea to add it because the supercharger does have oil in it, and eventually on folks, on turbocharged engines and supercharged engines, it perhaps is a good idea to add a catch can, oil catch can, because you're modifying this car. The original, if the now the engine you have does have a oil separator, but that oil separator is designed for naturally aspirated. When you modify, you want to help it a little bit by adding a catch can. So I would add one in this case, honestly. So, Stephen, in your most recent video, it looks like you had a 2022 Toyota Tundra with TRD wheels behind you. Are you working on a review of the Tundra? Yes. Folks, in my very small garage, there is a ginormous red Tundra right now. It's a limited TRD trim. It's not a TRD Pro. Toyota was very generous, gave me the car for a week to drive to do the review on. I want to really I'm spending some time with it. There's literally an inch. I can't even open the door in the garage. There's an inch in the front, inch in the back of the truck because it barely fits in my garage. I posted something on Instagram. I do want to review on it, and I cannot do the review in my garage. Usually I film it, we get a normal car that fits. This one does not fit. So I am going to film it in the new shop. It's going to be a construction site. It's a truck. I think it's fitting. So I will, when I did I don't know if you guys seen it. I've done a technical review on it. We did it at a dealership. I went through everything, but we didn't drive it. So now I'm driving the Tundra. Beautiful truck. There are a few issues, but we'll talk about those in the review. Where I'm going to review kind of how is it to live with. So you guys really know my opinion on the truck. And I hope it helps you if you're shopping around for one. So V2FE, former Southwest suburbs resident here, ex-neighbor, former neighbor. I have a 2006 Lexus GX470, 154,000 miles. Just noticed it's dripping a pink fluid from the transmission seal behind the oil pan. Expensive fix. Pink fluid is coolant. If you have pink fluid coming out of the transmission, we have disasters because that means that the transmission fluid is mixing with coolant, or they're commonly referred to as the pink milkshake. That's not good. You likely have a coolant leak, and if I would guess on that engine, it is probably coming from the pipe underneath the valley. This is something somewhat common, not super common on these, but somewhat common. You do want to check your cooling system, pressure test it, see where the coolant's coming from. It could be a few things other than that. I'm just giving you one example of what could be. Uh, do get it checked because this is a one serious truck that could really last you for a long time, but you don't want this one to kind of go and the coolant runs low and overheats. Don't let it be to that point. Just get it pressure tested, see where it's leaking from, and go from there. And speaking of the GX470, I actually have a GX470 coming in a few weeks here. We're going to do a video. You're going to love that one. It is a one-owner GX470 that the owner literally just rebuilt the entire car, spent an unbelievable amount of money on it, against a lot of recommendations to not do it just because it runs, but you're going to like that one. Another question. I have a Lexus NX 300H. I have both keys. However, the mechanical key is missing from one. What is the best, cheapest way to get a replacement? Dealership, honestly. These are not expensive. They're usually very available at dealership. They'll supply it, they'll cut it for you, and life is good. If it was the whole key, yes, it's expensive, but just the insert, it's called a key insert, it's not expensive. I would get it from the dealership. Steven, I have a Tundra on order from a local dealer, so I'm curious about your impressions. Yes, it's coming up, Steven. You'll see that review. I'm hoping next week. I'm gonna film it probably Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. It's going back on Thursday, but I should see it Saturday. Next Saturday video, you'll see that. Another question, Molly Z. We have a 2022 RAV4 a Prius Prime. I'm sorry, not a RAV4 Prime, and a 14 Prius, 90,000 miles. I know head gasket failures is common on third generation. How can I avoid it? And did they fix it for the fourth generation? They did fix them for the fourth generation, and actually they did fix them in around 2014, 2015 on the third generation as well. There was a change in the head gasket itself, the part itself. It is still really unknown why they failed to begin with, but they did make an update and didn't really say anything about it. But I wouldn't worry on fourth generation. So I haven't seen any examples. Yes, we've seen examples well over 200. Actually, one the other day showed up 2016 with 300 and something thousand miles. It was a cab. So cabs get really used. So I don't have concerns, but just keep up the maintenance. The main maintenance on this is, and I said this and some folks didn't like it, coolant. Do replace it every 50,000 miles or 5 years. That is the coolant. It really doesn't like to stay long, that pink coolant. All right. Wild Horses, how to protect the catalytic converters on a 2015 Lexus RX 350. Honestly, this one is going to be a little tough. The RX 350 is not really targeted a lot. So there's one company that's Cat Shield, I think. I think that's the name of their product. I don't remember the exact name of the company. They make it for Priuses, for Tundras, for Sequoias, because for Tacomas even. They're really common. And at some point, I wanted to work with them on this, like help testing the Tacoma one. I actually found a friend that owns Tacoma. I was like, we'll get to their prototype, filming a video, but they kind of disappeared, never heard from them again. So, but this is the only company that really makes really good products. Research the RX 350 is not a high prime candidate for catalytic converter theft. I just wanted to let you know that. Brandon Holm, new subscriber. Well, thank you so much for joining our family, sir. I appreciate it. Good to see you here. Greg Ball, with all the complex electronics in modern cars, is it safe to hook a battery charger onto a car battery when it is in the car, or should the battery cables be removed first? Very good question. When the car is off, treat it like you did your 1955 Chevy. Nothing is different, charge it. But one thing you do not want to do is keep the charger on when the car is running. When you're jump starting a car, it's okay for a few, a minute, two, three, until you unhook it. But don't leave the charger on with the engine running. That's when things get a little bad with modern cars. But otherwise, you're good. You can connect a battery jumper to it or a battery charger while your car is the battery is connected and it's in the car. Right, Lane Hog, we are ready to roll. We are rolling already, my friend. Jeffrey, how you doing, sir? Griffin, how you doing, sir? Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Branson, can't wait to see your code reader head-to-head review. Any thoughts on your favorite scope camera? So I do have two cameras that I love. One of them, I don't know, it's somewhere here. I think I left it in the garage actually. The other one is a Teslong. I really like the Teslong, a little bit more on the high-end side and everything. I didn't want to do a full review, but I do have a review coming up on what was that? A battery tester that I thought was pretty cool. That it's like a multifunction tool that it's from Hotel. Hotel finally got back to me. I don't know if you guys knew about the Hotel thing, but I do want to do a comparison because that tool also has a code reader built into it. So it's kind of like a little expensive, but we'll get to that review when we get to it. Chuck, how you doing, sir? Hope you're doing well. Hello from Buffalo. Henry, here's a question on an oldie. I've got a 1991 Toyota Previa minivan that gives a very brief rumble shake when passing 50, 80 kilometers an hour. Rumble only goes for 1 to 2 seconds, then it's gone. Really hard to tell without driving it because this is a car we don't service a lot anymore. But again, we go into heat shields, things loose underneath it. Sometimes that rumble description, I would need to hear it. It could be a lot of things, honestly, but I would look into stuff that are loose, especially heat shields or something of that nature first. Griffin, does the 2013 GX460 have the same maintenance as my 2010 LS460? It is less because they're just a little bit more old school and less complicated like the LS, but it is somewhat less. That's what I would describe it. It's less maintenance and less cost of maintenance, if you would. Another question: what do you think about buying a used Tacoma TRD or sorry OR? I can never understand what that OR is, by the way. If somebody can comment on that, that'd be great. That's Tacoma owner lingo. With 43,000 miles, it's been maintained at a dealership. Do these have issues with rust? You did not list a year, so that would really help me if you listed a year. But 2005 all the way to 2015, be careful with the frames. 2016 and 17, be careful. Everything after 18, late 18, mid 18 and up, you're good. Just if it's been maintained at a dealership, that's a good sign. Just make sure it's full service history, not a couple oil changes and nothing else. Another question from James. 2019 RAV4 hybrid. How can I tell when I'm using regen brake versus friction brakes? Can't feel any transition between the two. So the way you can tell is by the gauge. That gauge that says charge and it falls. Whenever you're not at the bottom of that gauge, you're like halfway in the charge area, you're actually on regen. When it goes all the way to the end, then it's going to start using the hydraulic brakes. That's not 100% accurate, but it is the closest thing to for you to know. The other way is as you come to a stop, like you're rolling the car 2 miles an hour and you hit the brakes, you're gonna feel like the brakes kind of feel weird. That's when so you can get used to how the difference between regen that is very smooth and even, then the hydraulic ones and hybrids, they'll feel a little strange to um because you press the pedal, there's like a half a second delay. I don't know. This my OCD kicks in here, but you really got to pay attention. And with the newer cars, it's getting really difficult to tell because they're very smooth. Vital Nomads, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate you joining the live stream and your generosity. All right, let's see. TXC 500 have Toyota frames improved recently due to rust issues of the past? Are they treated from rust? What rust proofing method do you prefer? The dealership uses an old black coating. So they have improved. Right around 2017, 18, they started spraying the inside of the frame, which turns out to be the problem actually. Because the outside, I've never seen a frame rot from the outside, and it's usually from the inside out. So when they start coating the inside, now you really lessen the problem. It could still happen if you never wash the truck and you really live in heavy salt land. It's going to happen. But the best way, the old black coating, I don't remember what was the name of it, but it's horrendous, for lack of a better word. It traps moisture. It's messy. It's really not very nice. Fluid film is a lot nicer. The only thing with fluid film that people don't like is you gotta every year, every two, you gotta reapply or at least touch it up. But it works really good. Doesn't make a ginormous mess like the black coating does. That's that's really my opinion. If I had a truck, I would use fluid film. Just spray the areas on the outside. If it's a newer truck, 18 and up, the inside has been sprayed, so that really helps. Share it forward. Can you please put captions for deaf community? It will help greatly. Yes, this was something I actually experimented with today. I do apologize that it did not work. I did not have enough time to figure it out because I'm using a different application. You notice this is the second time that the live stream is a little better. So I will try my best to get that feature to work. I couldn't figure it out. I fix cars for a living, but computers, I do have struggles. Another question: what car tires do you recommend for a Toyota Camry 2012 SE? Honestly, I'm going to make a recommendation on this, but normally I will tell you this. I don't like to recommend specific tires because tires are kind of like it depends on your taste. But since I've owned that exact car, if you want more of a sporty ride and you don't mind noisy tires, kind of don't last as long, and they're a little uh, rougher tires on bumps and whatnot, go with Bridgestone Turanza AL400. If you don't mind a little bit less of a sporty ride, a little bit more on the um, softer side of things, and but very quiet, lasts a long time, go with a Michelin either Premier or a Primacy. If you don't mind gas mileage drop and you just want the longest lasting tire, Michelin Defender really works good on these. You'll have a little bit of a drop in gas mileage, but these are the three tires that I had on my car. It started with a Bridgestone, then I went to a Michelin Primacy, then I put four Michelin Defenders, and the car was totaled like 2 weeks later. I still feel bad about that, by the way. I should have never put these tires. Anyways, that's just I still feel bad about that car. It was beautiful. Anyways, nobody was hurt, and that's what matters. I say that to everybody, but when it's me, it's kind of like I wish I still had that car. Anyways, going back. Another question. I have a 2021 RAV4 Prime. I'm concerned about the corrosion issue on the orange high voltage cable. This is on the media and the topic of all RAV4 forums. Have you heard of this issue? Yes. But there are two things about me that my viewers will know. I don't follow the media and I love the community of owners, but the forums I don't go a lot into because I don't have a lot of time. Either take time for my family and start spending it on the forums, or I just spend it with the family. Don't really have a lot of time, but I do know about the issue. And I will say this for everybody asking about this: I don't like to make a video to tell you, yep, there is a problem. I like to make a video to tell you, yes, there is a problem, and here's what you can do to fix it. Right now, the fix is, oh, you got to replace the cable. And that's not really a common sense fix, because the fix I'm looking for is, what do you do to prevent the issue from happening, not what you do when it does happen. When it does happen, you got to replace the cable. It's over. But what do you do to prevent it? I need to, like I told you, I'm really bogged down with the shop here, and things are really, I have not slept 2 3 hours in a very long time because of this whole thing. But I just want to clear my schedule so I can actually go get me one of these RAV4s and dissect into it and find a solution. How can we fabricate a solution? This is something I really want to do for you guys, because a lot of you have asked, and I understand if you own a RAV4 and hybrid or RAV Prime, primes will not be affected, by the way, but RAV4 hybrids. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Might have been important to mention that. But the RAV4 hybrid, I will try to find you a solution, guys, but I need a little bit of time to figure this out. Not the media. I don't want to just make a video and tell you, oh, yeah, it's a problem. Here it is. Okay, I want to give you a solution. And that's what matters. Another question. Huriel Garcia, I have a 2018 RAV4 with 57,000 miles. What should I do with 60,000 miles maintenance, or do an oil change? I'm not sure. It has too many miles. That's not too many miles on a Toyota, by the way. I would replace the transmission fluid at this point. Check your filters, do a full inspection, brakes, tires, the whole 9 yards. But there's the 60K of the past is no longer there. Spark plugs, we're not even close. We're halfway through the spark plugs. Other maintenance, really, other than transmission fluid, there's not much. Some of these cars will require an air filter and cabin filter replacement, but if you replaced it 10,000 miles ago, you're good. So just check them. Okay. Jeffrey, I have a question. My GR86 is having some clutch transmission issues. The story of our life with the GR86. So I don't know which model you're referring to. If you're referring to the newest one, then I don't have a lot of information on that, because we really only had two show up through the shop. I'm waiting to hopefully get one as a loan car from Toyota to test drive for a review. But if it's an older one, they have had some problems. They were not the most reliable cars in the world, I'll have to admit that. But the problem with the transmission was the cones for the gears were super soft. And if you're really a little bit aggressive with the transmission, they wear out, especially second gear. For some reason, every single one we've had is second gear, second gear, second gear. Um, I would need to a little bit more information. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I do not see it. Jeffrey, you can post a comment later with a little bit more information on exactly what the problems are. Henry, when I let off the accelerator and then speed up again, it'll give a slight rumble again, reproducible from 80 to 120 kilometers an hour. The rumble feels like you're going over a rumble strip. Mounts. That's sorry, this was a follow up to another question that we were talking about with the Previa, if I'm not mistaken. Mounts. Something is moving and creating like a shake, and then it settles down and it's good. Check all mounts, check all, even suspension. This is a little old there, and things could be just worn from time. Jose, fifth generation Forerunner, ticking noise coming from the left head. It seems to be normal as per the community. What do you know about it? It is normal as per. I have serviced hundreds and hundreds of these, and I've listened to a lot of people complain about this. Folks, if you own, and I think I actually know where this started from, where this became a problem. Grandpa Scotty Kilmer made a video comparing a fifth generation Forerunner to a 99, something like that, and saying that the fifth generation Forerunner was a very loud engine, it was ticking, and look how the old one was quiet. That was really not a fair video because you're comparing a timing belt engine that is ancient to a modern chain engine. Folks, the fifth generation Forerunner makes noise. It'll make noise when I get the car fresh off the truck with 1 miles on it, and it'll make noise when one of my friends gets a, I think, a 2010 or 11 with 350,000 miles. It makes exactly the same noise. I'm not concerned about it. That's how these engines are. They make that noise, and I'm with you. It does sound like there's something's about to blow up here. If when you hear it for the first time, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. That's completely normal, folks. I don't want you. I'm gonna go a little extreme here. I don't want you losing sleep over it. It's not worth it. That's how they are. Just like direct injected engines. Like if you have a Tacoma, it has a the Tacomas have a 3.5, have direct import. They have a cleaning mode where they'll change the pressures and to clean the injectors, self clean things. It's gonna get so loud, especially at idle, sound like a diesel truck idling. That is also normal. Very annoying. I'm with you, but it's normal. Don't worry about it. That's my final recommendation on that one. Oliver Garcia, would you recommend throttle controller for the Tacoma? You know, Tacoma are sluggish. I've heard a lot of good things. I personally have not tested it myself, but a lot of people have said it helps with acceleration and also helps with how the transmission shifts because it does shift a little odd on the Tacoma. So give it a shot, but just know it will affect the warranty in certain aspects. Thomas Garcia, would you rather go with the first generation Sequoia, timing belt, or a second generation with a chain? This one is hard. The first generation, they're really good trucks, but with rust, they are horrible trucks. If it's never been taken care of and it has rust all over it, they are really not good. But the second generation seems to be a little bit better with rust. I like the second generation look. Believe it or not, that's just personal taste and opinion. But they're really both really good. I'm not too worried about the chain engine as long as you avoid like a 2008. They did have a few issues with valves dropping, but if you go 9 and up, you're good. I'm not worried about the chain. The first generation Sequoia, it it is a very good truck, but as they get older, especially if you go like an oh 01, oh 02, just from age, things can pile up. And if you add rust to that, it could get really problematic. So, really hard to pick one between the two, but they're both really good if you get one that is in good shape. Another question, Xterra 32, 2020 Tacoma TRD off-road. Why do I roll backwards at the red light on a hill? That is one that a lot of people have complained about, and I've heard this one before. So what happens with these is when you stop at a traffic light and you are in direct injection mode, and when it switches to port injection. It's going to drop the RPM a little bit, and that'll cause the car to roll back up. A lot of people have complained about this one. Um, it is normal, but it's very annoying, and it could bring Toyota's attention to make a small software update where it wouldn't do that. Bring it to the dealership's attention, have them at least document it. They will tell you it's normal, and that'll make you upset. A lot of people do this, and they get upset when the dealership tells them, "Oh, this is normal," but that gets documented, and Toyota can see it. The more people that do that, the more they realize, wait a second, this is a very common problem. We need to look into it. That's how TSBs and fixes come out, by the way. One way up. I have a 2013 Toyota Corolla S. My question is, when I turn my car on when the weather is colder, the engine will make an ugly noise, but the car warms up to proper temperature and the noise will go away. So is it there is two noises that these will make. One of them is it like a 3 4 second noise, like a little rattle and goes away? If that's the case, that is a classic variable valve timing issue. Just a gear that needs to be replaced. Really not as common on the later ones, but it's still possible. But if it's this noise continuously stays until it warms up, like a clattering noise from the engine, that could be a lifter that is bleeding down. Not something I would consider diving into, but I would look into your oil change history. You want your oil interval to drop. Contamination could cause these lifters to stick. That is the one thing on these engines. Isaac White, 2008 Camry Hybrid. When I hit a bump, my check VSC light comes on. How do I fix this? Not going to read the last part of your comment. I'm sorry. Interesting question. Do you have see this could be actually not even related to the VSC, because if your struts are bad, that tire is bouncing off the ground and spinning, and it's actually activating, and it thinks something happened with the speed sensor, but it's actually just a bad strut. You want to really look into this to verify what's going on. What is it induced by the VSC system or the ABS, or is it something else that's causing it? Because it's very specific when you hit a bump. The other thing is check for codes. When this happens, don't shut off the car. You got to have a scan tool ready and see what it's seeing, so you can kind of construct your diagnosis path. If you have a problem with the speed sensor, check your struts because it's bouncing. And something that's common in that generation Camry is the sensor either will be pushed up or it will have debris on it. Do you have a bad wheel bearing? See, this is where this is where you want to decide your diagnosis route, is by figuring out what the car is seeing. Most people assume, and sorry, I will say, take a little bit of your time and say this. Most people assume, okay, I'm going to get a code. It's going to tell me to replace this part. You're going to replace it and move on. Sometimes you get lucky like that, but most of the time, that's not the case. All the trouble code is it's telling you what the computer saw wrong, but that doesn't mean it's going to tell you what you can do to fix it. So if you see a problem with a speed sensor, you don't immediately go run to replace the speed sensor. Where is it the speed sensor itself? Is it the wire? Or is it the area on the axle where the speed sensor is reading from? That's where you get now. But now you have a heading. You're not checking the car head to toe. You have a heading in your diagnosis. Okay, I'm going to focus on this speed sensor on this side, left front, for example, and check all these things. That's very important that you do that when you retrieve trouble codes. Dale, recently pre-ordered 2022 RAV4 Blizzard Pearl. What are your thoughts on film protection from Toyota? I've heard of white paint issues in the past. Should I get the whole front bumper protected? Honestly, I will say this. The paint protection from film protection from Toyota is a little bit expensive and it's not the best. I would look at aftermarket options because sometimes you can actually get almost the whole car wrapped for the price of the front protection. Look into it. Don't just say yes to it and get it. Look into other options. The Blizzard Pearl paint, it does have issues at some point. At this point, 2022, they should have resolved it. But any white car, and if you know, I love white cars, I have a lot of them, something called rail dust. Basically, specks of metal that falls on the paint and it turns into orange spots all over it. That's normal with all white cars. You're still going to have it with a film, but not as much as when it's exposed, and it'll be much easier to clean. So perhaps I would look into it. Nescape 2009 Corolla LE, EPS brake and ABS lights came on. Can shift out of park. Power window control stop working, but the engine starts. Did you jump to start this car backwards? If you did, you have an issue with the fuse, the 120 amp fuse. Folks, I just got a message from the program. I just want to verify you guys can hear me well, correct? I'm going to get to the end. Yes, that is the other thing. Mrs. Carcare now just put, we do have a tornado warning. It'll be okay. I'm in the basement. We'll be fine. But you guys, I just want to verify that you guys can hear me well. Yes. Okay. Let's get back to it then. Tornado will be fine. Will be fine. Maybe Mrs. Carcanat would like to come to the basement. Sorry for the drama. It's interesting when we have a tornado warning around here. Anyways, thoughts on aftermarket headlights for Lexus? I can get a set for 200 for my Lexus with LED daytime running lights. They're okay, but the only problem with aftermarket headlights is they seem to easily get moisture inside of them. So don't throw your originals just in case you buy these a year later, they have moisture inside of them, and now you throw your old ones, and don't throw the originals. That's the only thing I would do. But otherwise, they're okay. That's really the only problem you're going to have with them. Another question: 2009 Corolla, 180,000 kilometers. RPM fluctuates and engine vibrates only when you hit the brakes at a stoplight, not idling. Toyota says blown head gasket. Other ideas: no check engine light, no codes, change spark plugs. So that is not really consistent with what they're saying with your symptoms. If they tested it in person, they could have seen something else that they didn't tell you about. Newsflash: that mechanics should always tell you everything they find. But try this: plug the crimp the hose going from the intake manifold to the brake booster and see if it goes away. You might. That's what I would do in this case. All right. Let's see where we were at because I had to move. Just give me 1 second, guys. There we go. Sean O'Connell, thank you so much for joining. Good evening, sir. Yes, that we will do. I read it already. And Car Kirna family is joining us in the basement. There's a small tornado outside. We'll be okay. DE. I have a 2021 Tacoma SR5. The driver power seat is loose. It wobbles back and forth, so the dealership is going to replace the seat frame. Is this a common issue? This is not just, I wouldn't say this is a common issue with your car specifically, but it is a common issue with a lot of Toyota models. It's really hard to put a year range. Like I'll tell you this 2012 Camry that I had, um, it had that issue, and I ended up replacing the seat frame. And my brother's car never had this issue, although he didn't keep it that long. But this happens with a lot of models. I wouldn't specify, but it does happen. That's something that we've seen a lot. One way up, is that something I would worry about, or is it common for cold weather starting up engines? Sorry, I would have to see your original question. I don't see your original question anymore. Let me look it up.
What's his name?
One way up. I don't see your... Mrs. Carcanot will find that question because I do need to know what was the original question. Sorry, we went through a lot of questions and we paused. Elon Musk memes too. It's very interesting. What is your opinion on advanced drive on the 2022 Mirai? I do not have experience with the Mirai, folks. I'm not trained for them. We do not have them in my area, so I wouldn't know much about them. Danny Wood, I have a 2002 Sequoia with 220,000 miles. Timing belt was done in 1995. When do you recommend I get it changed? So every 90,000 miles is a good interval. 90,000 miles, 100,000 miles. 9 to 10 years, somewhere in that range would be a good time to replace it. These really, the timing belts on Toyotas are really good. They hold up a lot, but that's an interference engine. I would not risk it. Jeff Mackey, 2018 Tacoma, 2.74 by 4, 333,000 miles. Should I let the dealership change the transmission fluid? I think it's a little too early. I would wait 2 more years if you didn't get to 60,000 miles in that time. I think it's a little too early for it, honestly. I'd recommend every 60,000 or 6 years. Sorry, you're replying to somebody else. Another question. I recently purchased 2012. I think we already answered this one. Branson Home 2021 Sequoia Platinum. When sunroof opens, every once in a while, I hear it making a sound like it's trying to open further, only 8,000 miles. Have the dealership calibrated. Sometimes, if they're out of calibration, they'll not stop at the right time. So, that is something I would have them just, it'll take them 5 minutes calibrated, and life should be good after that. YPK, good evening to you too, sir. Thank you for joining the live stream. Tacoma Geeks, is a 2022 Lime Rush 4Runner bumper come factory painted? Any potential cost? I believe the Lime Rush 4Runners are factory painted, just the middle part is not. I'm going off memory here. Potential cost, I don't do auto body work, so I wouldn't be able to give you an idea on that, honestly. Yukon Striker 2GR FE V6 RAV4 Sport owner here, 111,000 miles, is a reliable rocket. It is. It is very fast. Elaine Velasco, do you have a video on how to replace emergency brake cable for a 2009 Toyota Camry Hybrid? I do not, but if I ever get one in the shop, I will post a video on that. Another question, I have a 2007 Corolla S and have a power steering leak, about one drop on the ground per day. Should I replace the pump now? It's been topping off the fluid, which I don't mind. Well, you got to make sure that it's, if you're topping off the fluid because it's actually going down, then you definitely have a power steering leak. But I was going to say, you got to verify that it is actually a leak. Do you know for a fact that the power steering pump is leaking? That's what you want to. Something common on these, not really the power steering pump. Usually it's the front timing cover that leaks on top of it. But look at the return line. So when you look at the reservoir, you're going to have a line that kind of loops and then goes back. It's a rubber piece, then the rest of it is metal. Super common to leak and leak a lot. So kind of spend some time to look at the lines, make sure that all the leak that you have is from the pump, not from anywhere else. Folks, we'll take a few more questions and then we're going to spend time in the basement because we have a tornado warning. Is it a warning or a watch, Mrs. Carcarot? She's checking. It's a watch. Well, we have a tornado watch around here. Let's see. P. Wagner, 2007 Prius, 212,000 miles, regular service at 5,000 miles. Is there any way to determine the health of the hybrid battery? Folks, there is no 100% accurate way just by plugging in a scanner or doing something to determine the health of the battery. Yes, there are some aftermarket places that tell you we'll do a little formula and calculation and whatnot. It's not 100% accurate. There's really no way to determine 100% what is the health of this battery because you can't test individual cells. If you have the equipment to test individual cells, then potentially, but as a whole, you cannot test it. And that's the problem with these. Let's take the last question here. The Drumset Pro, we have a 2003 Camry LEV6 with 95,000 miles. The rear suspension has been changed, but still clunks. Even though all struts are placed, even over small bumps, it makes the noise. What could it be? Three things I would look at. The first thing is, these struts that you replaced, were they original or were they quick struts? If they're quick struts, that's the first problem. The second thing on these is super common on these this generation Camry rear sway bar bushings. They'll make a horrible noise. Tiny little bushes, super inexpensive, original, but they'll make a horrible knocking noise over the tiniest bump. That's something you want to address. And lastly is the control arms. Sorry, with the sway bar bushings, the links as well, of course. But the lastly is the control arms. There's two control arms. One of them is adjustable for the alignment. One of them is solid. Check those. Yes, they are not. That's the last one on my list because they're not super common. But this car, getting up there in age, it could be that one of them has a little bit of play. These also make a lot of noise over bumps when they're loose. And with that, folks, I'm going to move to the end of the live of the chat here to see what you guys are saying. The shop. I gotta take this one out. The shop is draining my sleep a little bit. I feel like I told Mrs. Carcano the other day. I feel like we have a third child. I only have two kids. Now we have three with the shop. Um, it's been a lot. It's been a lot of going back and forth with contractors, with decisions, with all this stuff. We might be actually heading to the shop right now to measure stuff. I might, Mrs. Carcano, we should probably take a camera there once the tornado warning thing passes. Um, we should probably take a camera there and do a video. I think we're due for an update. There's a lot that happened. A lot of things that are done, a lot of changes, and I have decided on the floor in the office. I'll share with you guys that in the video. But I want to clarify a few things that a lot of you have asked. I am still working at the dealership. I will not leave until the shop is fully up and running. And the most important question that you all have asked, I do not have other mechanics working in my shop. It's just going to be me. So you bring your car in. I will be working on the car myself. I don't have any mechanics scheduled. There is one friend who's actually a viewer that I got to know him and we became a little bit of friend. We're in talks, but I want to open the shop and see. He might end up joining the family to kind of help us out to the shop and do everything. But for now, I will work on every single car from beginning to end. Wish me luck on that because it's hard enough to fix cars. Now I have to run the business and fix cars at the same time. But we'll see what happens. It's an exciting journey and a lot is going on. I'm actually we got our first piece of equipment. I'll leave that for the video. You guys will see it. It's been a lot. It's been draining a little bit. It's been very hard. Lots of sleepless nights for me and Mrs. Carcaronat with everything, but we'll get through it. We're not the first people to open a business, but it is tough. Any business owners out there, huge respect to you guys because it is tough. It is tough to do everything and just hope for the best. Um, you know, Wilmer, don't worry, nothing in life worth having comes easy. Very true. When we're determined to work very hard for this, and we'll see. One thing I will tell you guys, so I'm going on vacation on the week of the starting May 9th, I think, May 9th to the 13th. We're going on vacation because we figured if we're going to open the shop sometime in June, that's what we're hoping for, we need to put in our vacation before that. So, once you open a business, you really will not have time, unless at least for a while, to go on vacation. The shop will be in the south. So a lot of I saw Mike Gilbert is asking. The shop will be in the southwest suburbs. I just want to finalize a few things before I give you the final address and everything. And there will be a video. We're hoping that video will come out June 1st. It'll be when we actually open the scheduler. We're going to open the schedule to schedule appointment. We are doing things by appointment only to keep things not, unorganized. We want to organize everything. I'm OCD. I don't like mess, so I like things to be organized. So June 1st, hopefully, we will have the scheduler open, and we have a few staff members that will be taking care of the appointments. We'll see what happens, guys. But it's been a little nerve-wracking, but we're getting through it. The shop is in southwest suburbs of Chicago. Sorry, I didn't mention that part. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream. I think the tornado warning have passed. I still see thunders outside, but we'll be okay. It's not the first time. It's not the last time. Whatever God has in his plans for us, we'll do it and we'll be happy with it. Folks, thank you so much for joining the live stream. I really appreciate you guys joining. I appreciate all your generosity for those who put a super chat and whatnot. We will not have a live stream next weekend because I will be packing my bags to go to Cancun for vacation. I am really happy for that. Can't wait. But we'll have a live stream next, I think it's May 1st. No, not May 1st. I'm losing my dates here. I think May 8th or 7th. Oh my God, I'm losing all my now. This looks horrendous. I had the date in my mind, but I forgot it. Miss Carcarian was like, "Don't say the date, just say next Saturday." Okay, next Saturday, no live stream. We'll be back after that, guys. Thank you so much, and until the next live stream or video, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you guys have a wonderful weekend.